Good afternoon, gamers. Today I want to talk about a topic that's very near and dear to my heart, which is Resident Evil. My favorite thing on the entire planet is big ol' spooky games, but specifically, I've grown up being completely obsessed with Resident Evil, playing each of the games as they came out, reading the terrible tie-in novels, actually running through them again and again and again. I still actually have my original copies of a lot of these games, and I feel like it's been very fascinating to watch how much Resident Evil has exploded in popularity over the course of these last couple years. I mean, it feels like the Resident Evil remakes and the rise of games like Resident Evil 7 and Resident Evil Village have changed the conversation around Resident Evil in the mainstream media. But today, I want to try and win you over to an idea, which is that we need a Resident Evil Code Veronica remake. But let me explain why. What's up, gamers? DreamcastGuy here. Please, if you enjoyed this video, give it a like. Let's see if we can get this video to 1,000 likes. I don't know, do whatever you want. Please, it's a free country. But subscribe if you like. I'm DreamcastGuy, and now let's dig into my very favorite topic. So currently, a huge chunk of the conversation online is discussing this Resident Evil 4 remake that's now been officially revealed. In fact, even here, this is a tweet from Capcom showing off the fact that we're about to get a lot more of the Resident Evil 4 remake coming up at their showcase that's happening next Monday. Now, personally, of course, I'm extremely hyped. I'm glad this game exists. I'm going to be talking about it. I'm going to be playing it. This seems like it's going to be pure freaking hype, but what I've been doing is sort of poking around the internet, and it seems like a lot of people are sort of getting into Resident Evil for the first time with a lot of these new games. People seem to be exploring cosplay, the content, the weird movies and stuff because of Resident Evil 7, Resident Evil Village, and the Resident Evil remakes. And because of this, I've sort of been going on a spiritual journey, so to speak. I've gone back and I've beaten all the old Resident Evils again, the original versions of Resident Evil 1, 2, and 3, weird stuff like Gun Survivor. But while I was replaying Code Veronica on my PlayStation 4, something about this game really struck a chord. Now, I've always loved Code Veronica, and I thought the game got way too much hate. Code Veronica is a very, very unique experience. It takes place in Claire Redfield stuck on this prison island trying to escape. Now, this is owned by Umbrella. It's currently under attack by some sort of mysterious special forces, but during the course of the game, I think a lot about the complaints. The primary things I see said against Code Veronica is that the game has way too many puzzles and it's way too long. While most of the early Resident Evil games are only about 1 to 2 hours long, games like Resident Evil 2 and even the Resident Evil 2 remake can be beaten in just a couple hours, whereas Code Veronica was a whopping 12 hours long. So obviously it being 6 times longer than a normal Resident Evil game, that sort of turned people off. Going through it again though in 2022, I feel like these games have aged remarkably well. There's a lot of puzzles, there's a lot of combat. I like the fact that the story and lore is spaced out and sprinkled very, very nicely. They'll introduce a character, they'll introduce their struggle, and then they'll give them motivations. I feel like while a lot of Resident Evil games are fun in a nostalgia sense, sometimes I wish that they had a bit more like dedicated plot at the center of it. As somebody who, one of my favorite games of all time is Resident Evil 2, and I do love the original version of Resident Evil 3 back on the PlayStation 1, I always wanted more explorations of the concepts they were putting down, like these evil corporations, mysterious secret labs underneath just tiny Midwestern towns and stuff like that. Code Veronica, it felt like the first game that kind of wanted to dive into that, showing that the people who even work at Umbrella are downright freaking loony nutcases. And that's kind of what's cool, is seeing Alfred Ashford. This is one of the main bad guys of Code Veronica. He is a complete freaking loon. Seeing this guy again after replaying a bunch of the classic Resident Evils, it sort of struck me how much they were trying to lay down inside of this game. Now, I will fully admit, the voice acting here is definitely not the best, but that's part of the reason I want a Resident Evil Code Veronica remake, is because I feel like this experience is still very great. It's still dang near perfect. It just lacks polish, which is what they've managed to add in more than anything else with these remakes. The Resident Evil 2 remake, the Resident Evil 1 remake, the Resident Evil 3 remake is obviously a bit of a step down, but even the RE4 remake, from what we've seen thus far, seems to be a faithful recreation of what they originally were were intending. And Code Veronica, in a lot of ways, I always thought it was the most fascinating stepping stone, because classic Resident Evil, it was very, very slow. It was very, very methodical. It was about way too many zombies, not enough bullets, huge burning cities like Raccoon, just trying to deal with them before a nuclear bomb goes off. Like, old school Resident Evil was great, high intensity freaking moments. But Code Veronica, it's purposely a bit more slow. It does have a lot of combat. It's got a lot of different weapons to use. It's got multiple playable characters, so you do end up running around as Steve Burnside, Chris Redfield, Claire Redfield. And during the course of this, what still kind of sticks in my mind is that the 3D-ness of this. The oldest Resident Evils used pre-rendered backgrounds. They're essentially like running around on a painting. And while I think that has aged remarkably well, I'm still very struck by their idea of making 3D graphics with fixed camera angles. Resident Evil Code Veronica is still, in my mind, the best and most approachable of the classic Resident Evil games, because while it does have tank controls, it does steer a little bit weird to people who are not acclimated to it, I still think that this is such a great taste of classic Resident Evil in a way that looks very, very modern. Now, honestly, a major motivation for making this video just comes down to the fact that, selfishly, I like what Capcom has been doing with a lot of these remakes, but I'm always curious how they can push the envelope, how much more juice they can get out of the Resident Evil engine, because the RE engine is quite stunning with the amount of lighting effects, the graphics, especially on these next-gen consoles. I mean, I kind of want to see another adventure with Claire, and that's part of a big reason I think this could be incredibly successful, is because Resident Evil 2 Remake, RE3 Remake, like, these games are big, very flashy, archetypal masterpieces. Like, they look great, they play freaking perfect, and I kind of want to see another adventure with Claire. It feels like she's always been a fan favorite character. This would be a huge success, and I do feel like not only is Code Veronica kind of considered this forgotten chunk of the canon actual timeline of Resident Evil, but also the game is good. It's a chance to see Wesker. It's a chance to see so many chunks of the Resident Evil universe very, very established before the time jump of Resident Evil 4. Definitely something that's always kind of shocked me back in the day is that I played each of the Resident Evil games the second they came out. Every single game, the moment they dropped, I was there trying to buy it, trying to track down a strategy guide, trying to find every hidden collectible, and definitely all the files to figure out the goopy, spooky science inside of the universe. But when Resident Evil 4 came out, that giant time leap where suddenly Umbrella's just gone. Resident Evil 4 sort of threw things into this seemingly distant future where suddenly everybody was just trying to cope with fear without the science. And I kind of always wanted to go back, and I kind of always missed, in a way, that experience that we got with Code Veronica, which felt like it had the most science, the most research, the most terror, and also sometimes the most bullets to fight back with. Code Veronica is a very, very unique style of terror, with so many puzzles, some very unique monsters like the Bandersnatch. Like, a lot of stuff in this game I feel like goes underappreciated. So my impassioned plea to Capcom is, just think about it. Do some market testing. After Resident Evil 4 is done, I'm not sure if you guys are planning like Resident Evil 4 and then some sort of expansions or DLC or what you're planning on doing with that, but maybe even if it takes time to do this after Resident Evil 9, because one of the primary rumors is that they want to do main game remake, even if we have to wait a couple years, I just ask, eventually, please give us Resident Evil Code Veronica as a remake before Resident Evil 5 remake, because you guys are probably already having secret meetings about that. Please respect what Code Veronica is. Respect what it was trying to do. Yes, it has flaws. Yes, Steve Burnside sometimes laughs like he's got several different issues with his penis and testicles, but please, I ask, give Code Veronica the budget and the respect that it deserves, because the fans will literally pay it back. But these are just my thoughts as a Resident Evil fan, kind of fanboying about one of my favorite games that just doesn't seem to get enough passion poured upon it. What do you think about Resident Evil Code Veronica? What do you think about the Resident Evil 4 remake? Tell me your thoughts in the comments down below. Please, if you enjoyed this video, give it a big old thumbs up, share with your friends, and subscribe if you haven't already. But do me the biggest favor of all, and keep dreaming. By the way, if you haven't done it yet, be sure to actually track these down. They're all by S.D. Perry. These Resident Evil books, I like to bag on them because they're kind of weird, but I read them over and over and over as a kid. My book is literally falling apart. That's how much I love it. Check it out. There are some weird corners to the Resident Evil universe that deserve your attention. Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.